Hello, this is Lady X. Please like and subscribe, and my stories will thrive. Welcome to another video by the Blue Flames of Hell for some more HYLDR Chronicles. This chapter is called The Blue Tongues of Hel. In the heart of Nebelwood, a score of baleful drogs were gathered around the river. The young kid had grown into an indomitable fiend, and few found the courage to defy his authority. The less craven, who found the river's ascension too hasteful, were dealt with accordingly. The bloody carpet of fallen manna ash blossom at River's feet illustrated his fierce domination. He paced the blood-speckled floor within the gaping mouth of bloody hoof caves, and sent swirls of the ash blossoms overpowering fragrance into the crowd. The young drogue didn't utter a word to the assembly, and yet began to share his deepest thoughts to all the HYLDR of Nebelwood.
It is no secret to you all that Urdor and girl are dead. Skuld is now too, killed by Skeggle's only child. The twin swans are sitting ducks waiting to be gutted, and Sune is a lame duckling who refuses to take sides. Voluspa has abandoned us, and hell knows where best lies, or Hyn or Vor for that matter. The Order of the Mist is dead. You hear me? Dead. If you've come to me tonight for answers or guidance, all I can offer is what is burning within me. The same rage you all feel. The two-legged leeches of this island have polluted our kingdom for too long. They have been allowed to hunt us, enslave the best of us. And for what?
River strolled through the drogs, and a calm breeze rustled the spring leaves above.
All monarchs are silent as the dead. You all know what Kara went through. One of our kind, like many before her, was stripped of all dignity and tortured for information about us. I suggest we give them a taste of everything they're so curious to know. A dash of what we have to offer.
The drogs flexed their muscles and claws, scratched the dirt, and barked their approval. Kara appeared from behind the pine tree and observed what was about to happen. She had wanted this for so long, and almost couldn't remember why. But the haunting face of her sadistic captor reassured her doubts. She transformed from Arctic fox to drog and joined the others.
As of today, I declare open season on the realm of men. The night is ours, Drogar of Nebelwood. Let us paint their pretentious tombs red, and when we've sucked them dry, we can let our dark woods spread wild.
Growls of more applause filled the forest, and even the bears and wolves cowered in fear. A Drogar storm took off towards the Nibelungen Mountains, led by their new leader, Refer, the Woodland King. Below the Blue Tongues of Hel, HYLDR had drowned so much, it was almost second nature. Over 600 times had she swallowed the rank waters, surrounded by rotting bodies. And every time she dropped into the soggy marsh, it became less disgusting, almost soothing. It felt like being reborn, given another chance to prove oneself worthy of hell. Or was she simply not good enough, even for the underworld, and sentenced to be spat out into hell's piss pot until she became one of the slimy others? Perhaps she was already one of them, but didn't know it yet. How long would it take her to turn into a sticky corpse? Hilda didn't seem to care. Her deaths and rebirths had become as banal as breathing. She focused on a subsonic wailing and endeavored to make sense of the music between each fatal breath. Her life flickered on and off like accelerated moon cycles, and she slowly grew aware of a word crystallizing in her brain. And the wailing was now a faint growling. The drowning and plunging into the fields of flesh were nothing but distant echoes. Hilda heard the moaning mutate and break up into segmented, higher-pitched sounds. Almost repeated words, spoken like heartbeats pounding from above. The flock. Time froze, and Hilda floated underwater, holding her breath. Hilda lethargically stared at the bottom of the lake and frowned at something she had never seen before. Black seaweed, or a skeletal hand. Once more, Hilda dived into the lake and swam to the bottom. She grabbed hold of the slimy black chain attached to a circular plug and pulled with all her might, but it didn't budge. Hilda screamed her wrath and stamped her feet on the plug. That wasn't as solid as she thought. Her foot sank into the rubbery surface, and the plug gave way. The weight of the entire lake hammered her body, and she was flashed down the hole. And she didn't fall back onto the festering shores. Irpa and Verdandi hooted in harmony and fluff, flapped their wings. What is it? Asked Sunne. She pulled the plug. But beware of what you wish for. Sunny scrambled to his feet and ran as fast as he could to the howling cauldron. Drogs ignored him and wandered upwards along the tunnels in the opposite direction. When he finally arrived, panting before the open doorway to the well he was supposed to be guarding as appointed Norn, soon he felt a wave of relief. She had returned. Hildar, how are you feeling? Do you need something? Hildar? Hilda didn't bother to look at the young stranger. And the flames called her back, and she let the icy tongues sing her the future. She didn't recognize anything or anyone. A blonde young man on the parapet of a white castle. White-robed priests being slaughtered and piled up to burn in a moonlit courtyard. A tidal wave crushing an ornamental garden bathed in fiery light. I want them to rise again. The roads demanded. Hilda's eyes went black, and tears of blood covered her pale cheeks. Her chestnut hair was now ashen black and had grown down to her hips. She could still smell decaying flesh every time she exhaled, and everything she set eyes on had a greyish haze. She felt something cold and wet running down her legs, and noticed black liquid was dribbling from her breasts. Hildar, cried Sunne, trying to comfort her. Oh, is this Hildar? Get me some clothes. Now, boy. Hilda closed her eyes and focused on the white castle she had seen. Soon he slumped to the floor, unconscious. A long thread of vapor slid out of his mouth, crawled out of the chamber and up the tunnels. It grew thicker and longer as it blended into other worms of mist from other tunnels and darted onwards like a wolf closing in on a fleeing doe. In Nebelwood, birds dropped from their branches. Foxes and badgers fell asleep. All the drogs would set out to murder as many humans as possible, crushed into the brambled undergrowth and exhaled their spirits into the air. Creatures in a coma throughout the forest released an acrid mist that followed a similar path, spiraling and tangling together to form a sea of mist that left the woods and flooded the moonlit meadows. Huge full moon was low in the sky and soon was hidden behind a curtain of HYLDR fog. Long teeth of shadows stretched over Mooncastle's misty courtyard and slowly shriveled as the sun rose over the eastern parapets. HYLDR was the first to wake up. The bike that someone had used to kill him was on the cobbled floor, and his broken ribs and bare chest were healed. But death was all around him. Slain priests, dismembered friends, and butchered kin were littered over the courtyard, and his parents were sliced to bits. HYLDR stared at his short nails and remembered every bloody moment before he was killed. How he had torn through anything alive. How he had drunk people's blood. He must have killed his own parents. Only he could have done it. The Prince of Helheim picked up his mother's blade and shed a tear that fell into a crack between stained cobblestones. He ran to his quarters to dress and fled the castle in shame. A flock of jackdaws flew down into the courtyard and began to peck at the corpses, bathed in a shallow pool of mist. Asgard's left eye gleamed in the rising sun with deceiving liveliness. Then the eyeball suddenly flicked towards the scavenger, tearing her other eye apart. The jackdaws cawed in fright and fluttered off as several limbs twitched and bones cracked, slithering back to where they used to be. From the bottom of a deep well, Kyōko's twisted neck and broken bones snapped back into place, and she gasped for air as the mist brought her back to life. Kyōko screamed for help, thrashing about in the dark waters, but nobody came to save her. King Jarl opened his eyes and roared as if in the midst of battle. He wasn't in Valhalla, and there was a foul stench in his lungs. He was awed by the sight of his slaughtered people returning to life, and bitterly remembered his wife in the arms of King Radgrid. The King of Muspelheim was still there, kneeling beside Asgard, holding her cold hand. Njal rose to his feet, but felt a giant's invisible hand smothering his head. He lumbered over to Radgrid and strangled the grieving man from behind. Despite Radgrid's rib-breaking elbows to the chest and enhanced strength due to the fiery belt, King Jarl would not let go. His memories of betrayal were as fresh as his renewed skin, and Njal irefully throttled the life back out of the Muspelheim leader. The mist filled Asgard's lungs, and her heart began to beat again. She glared at her husband with his hands ringed around Radgrid's neck, and let out a weak cry of protest. King Jarl lost his mind. He tore off Radgrid's belt and wrung her neck with it. Asmund was all in one piece again, but so were the fake gothic priests who impeded his movement towards Queen Asgard, being choked by Njal. It didn't take him long to slay them, and he swung his blade without hesitation to remove the Helheim King's head. It rolled onto Asgard's lap, while the Queen's red eyes gazed blankly at the sun. The Muspelheim soldiers saw their king was dead and fled the castle. Helheimers ran after them and continued to fight in the flowery meadows leading up to Moonstone Hills. During the lethargic battle, neither side realized they were both being picked off by another foe. After the first flood of mist had rolled back into Nebelwood, the Drogs, led by Refr, scarped as far away as they could from HYLDR's control. On the outskirts of Helheim at sunrise, the Drogs were thrilled to be served a herd of humans on a silver platter. None of the Norsemen knew what hit them when the Drogs began to single out their victims and cut them down. A few dawdling archers and horsemen from Helheim saw what was happening and sent a cloud of fiery arrows flying into the pack of demons. The terrified warriors of Helheim and Muspelheim forgot their fatal feud and dented pride, and didn't exactly join forces, but fought off the deadly drogs together. Meanwhile, in Moon Castle, a bunch of delirious guards straggled around the courtyard. A blond man of small stature heard a haunting voice. Lamenting inside the well. Winnie called out to someone in the dissipating mist to share the story. A Muspelheim woman with broad shoulders who'd only just awakened grabbed the guard by the hair and tossed him down the well. When the muscular woman peered over the edge, a sudden gust of violent wind lashed out of the dark and dragged her into the water to drown. She struggled to stay afloat, slapping and scratching at the frantic guard, who had black hair tangled all over his face. They felt soggy objects bobbing beneath them and fought each other to death to use its buoyancy. When the sun peeked over the well's rim, 3 dead bodies bobbed silently in the shimmering scarlet water. "Enough, HYLDR!" shouted Sunne, pulling the young woman away from the howling cauldron. HYLDR, she was a conflicted individual, wasn't she? And you are an annoying, frightened calf. You don't get to tell me what to do. The flames require more spirits, more death. I follow HYLDR's desires, and you will do as your monarch commands. HYLDR wore a raven-feathered long dress that swept the floor when she moved. She stared into the blue flames' future and bled more from her eyes and breasts. The exhausted Huldra and weak animals of Nebelwood drifted to sleep and shut the reviving mist out again towards Helheim. Nebulous, misty claws stroked the raven graves beside Erivagar River, and 3 decomposed bodies crawled out from under the rocks and soil. Skull's human form toppled over the edge of the ship burial ground and broke her neck on the longship below. Agnes' living corpse staggered over her and scraped at the muddy walls of his grave. Eleonora tasted the rotten flesh of Skuld, squirming with maggots, and delicately ate her lips. A western wind blew part of the mist to Vanaheim's shores and revived the devoured corpses of Gunnar and Toki. The latter was still chained to a rock and was about to drown again as the seawater touched his barnacled tongue. Gunnar scrambled to shore and pulled a crab out of his throat. Vanaheim was cold and grey. There was a warmth in the west that pulled his strings and urged him to walk away. Fat green flies fidgeted around his open wounds and apparent bones, seeking adequate areas to lay their eggs. Before another wave of mist could reanimate the day's victims, packs of wolves finished off the remaining Norsemen, agonizing at the foot of Moonstone Hills. Hilda did as she pleased and pushed the limits of her growing influence over the HYLDR. The retreating drogs dropped into green grass fields, releasing their spirits like snuffed-out candles. The Muspelheimers and Helheimers rose from the dead and fled the wolves and hellish woodland beasts to run north. Helheim's resuscitated troops within the white walls followed the army, supposedly chasing the Muspelheimers into the hills. They slayed some of the wolves and marched over Moonstone Hills towards the Golden Eyrie. No gothic priests were there to ambush them on their way. Soon they knew that Hilda was being reckless, but couldn't do anything to stop her. She had abused the HYLDR like a child pulling off spider legs, and many had died from exhaustion. Passer and birds lost their song, and snakes ignored the warming sun rays. Even Freyr was too tired to break free from Hilda's charm. He stood obediently at the doors of the howling cauldron, waiting like a domesticated animal he had grown to become. Hilda wiped her body clean with a blue cloth and frowned at Voluspa's son. Soon he felt sick. He trembled as he felt Hilda's mind spreading through the HYLDR community. The swans offered no solutions and obsessively guarded milk well in peace and quiet. Why can't I wipe their brains like Voluspa used to? Asked Hilda, dropping the soiled cloth into the blue flames. I bring them back, but they remember everything. What am I doing wrong? Sune couldn't contain himself any longer. You're doing everything wrong. You can't play with nature like that. You've even managed to kill some of us. Wildlife is confused. And the natural cycles of life are fractured. You didn't answer my question, son of Voluspa. How do I brainwash people? You can't. Not unless. Unless, said Hildur, stepping closer to Sunni with malignant flickering eyes. Sunni heard the swans hoot in his mind and understood what the cryptic message meant. This might be their last chance to get rid of her. There were risks. They were definitely dire. But what else could they do? Unless, Hildur, you rule over the three worlds. And if I do that, I will be able to erase memories, govern the realms completely. Like a queen bee. You will rule over the HYLDR and humans. But it won't be easy. I'm listening, said Hildur, swishing her black feathered dress and staring into the flames. She watched Drogs fighting men and women near Muspelheim's castle. She saw Sunni slitting her neck as she stepped into the second well with one eye. So first, you must pluck out one of your eyes. And then it is said that you must behead a friend or foe. And then afterwards, orphan webs will decide your fate. Then take me to the black waters, little Elgar. Don't forget your antler knife. See you soon for the next chapter of the HYLDR Chronicles.